So how Korea became divided is a crazy story, but let me back up a bit. To the 7th century. Korea was initially united in the 600s under the Silla dynasty, and remained independent until 1910, by which point it was controlled by the Joseon dynasty. On August 22nd of that year, Korea was annexed by the Japanese Empire. Japan retained control until 1945, when 2 nuclear bombs were dropped on Japan, forcing a surrender and relinquishing control of the Korean peninsula. The United States took control of the south, and the Soviet Union took control in the north. Now divided by the 38th parallel, the Communist Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the north, and the Capitalist Republic of Korea in the south were created. Both sides did not want a divided Korea, but obviously they wouldn't have the same vision for a united Korea. The tension between the two sides grew, and on June 25, 1950, 75,000 soldiers from the DPRK pushed across the 38th parallel and into the south. The North Korean People's Army took the southern capital of Seoul and occupied all of South Korea except for Busan in the southeast. This worried President Truman, as the United States was trying to prevent the spread of communism. South Korea filed for assistance from the United Nations, and the U.S. pushed for more assistance for South Korea. The United Nations asked North Korea to withdraw from the South, but the appeal was ignored. A plan to send in troops to assist the South was approved, and a team was sent in by July. The team consisted of soldiers from 16 countries: the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Colombia, Thailand, Ethiopia, France, Greece, the Netherlands, Turkey, the Philippines, Belgium, and Luxembourg, whose troops were in the Belgian battalion. The group would be under U.S. leadership. Many of the UN countries were not nearly as anti-communist as the United States, but the U.S. was powerful enough that the other nations would follow its lead. The Korean War was the first war to be fought under the United Nations flag. The UN forces arrived and were pushed back by North Korean forces, and had to hold the line around Busan until more reinforcements arrived in August. General Douglas MacArthur, who was leading the mission, now decided to play offense. On the 15th of September, the U.S. Marines X Corps led an amphibious attack at Incheon, and by the end of September, Seoul was recaptured along with the rest of South Korea. The North Korean army retreated across the 38th parallel. That could have been the end of it, but General MacArthur had other ideas, which were approved by President Truman. The UN troops moved into the north on the 7th of October. In under a week, they had captured the North Korean capital of Pyongyang. They moved on and reached the Yalu River, where Korea bordered China. China, afraid that they would just keep going, sent 250,000 troops to assist North Korea. The UN forces could not take on this added opposition and were pushed back into the south. By January of 1951, the North Korean and Chinese troops had captured Seoul once again. In March, Truman told MacArthur that he would begin ceasefire talks. MacArthur went his own way and threatened China with expansion of war and showed no signs of wanting a ceasefire. He wanted a full-scale war against China and pushed to use the atom bomb against them. He was dismissed by Truman for insubordination and was replaced with General Matthew Ridgway. In June, more UN troops were sent in, allowing them to push all the way back to the 38th parallel, where the front was stabilized. Peace talks started in July, but the two sides could not find a compromise. The fighting continued, and in the air, US pilots were fighting Soviets, flying Chinese fighters and wearing Chinese uniforms. Eisenhower became president in 1953, and he searched for an end to the war. Finally, in July, an armistice was signed at Panmunjom on the 38th parallel, a full 2 years after peace talks began. A demilitarized zone was set up along the border, which still stands to this day. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing for more content like this, and don't forget to share with anyone you think might be interested.